Yeah.
That is not true. We are unhinged. I'm going to go ahead and say 90% of the time. Also, if you are a patron of us, literally look at any patron special where we're just drunk rambling for 2 hours.
I'm fine. I don't see a problem with the way that I express my appreciation in this podcast. It's fine.
What you guys have missed is for the last like 15 minutes us just complaining about Black Butler.
And the fact that we have a lot on our hands, like both of our plates are like really full. We're stacking up all the plates. And I'm like running on 3 hours of sleep, and we had like a huge thing yesterday with my con.
Yeah.
We were organizing. We're removing storage facilities for 8 unpaid hours, and now we're having ticket releases.
I have a bat. I have a queer bat because we're going to talk about QueerBait.
Because you can't see it, but my eye went missing, so it says QueerBait on the
which will be a design released in the shop later today. My shirt says coffee and confidence because I got this from my aunt, and she is indeed a 50-year-old suburban woman.
Mine says Doki Doki, so I'm here for the.
We also have more shirts coming in, which is very exciting.
I'm so excited.
I'm very excited.
Just that alone is like giving away what the motive is. It's like, what could I possibly be this excited about, you ask?
We will have to release in the Patreon episode.
Yeah.
But thank you guys. Welcome to the Yaoi Shelf.
Hello, welcome to the Yaoi Shelf.
And relax. We say that every time. I don't know if any of you guys are relaxed.
Are you relaxed? Do you feel relaxed right now?
No. Side note for those of us in the US, we have a lot going on right now. I hope that this is a welcome distraction because to say that we have a lot going on is an understatement.
Yeah, you know, it's there's something about crawling out of the pit that is Eurovision hell and returning to the real world and seeing what's happening overseas with you guys. I was just like, oh, yeah, that's.
And in all fairness, we're still kind of looking back over at you guys because there's a giant looming Russia situation.
Yeah.
That is scaring everyone. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about QueerBait because we have decided that for episode 9, we're just going to pick a fight.
We've been picking fights since I got on this podcast. We've been fighting each other. We've been fighting you guys. I'm ready.
Arguably, I've been picking fights since this podcast started almost 2 years ago next month.
Yay! Did you do that on purpose? Not the fight picking, but the launching in Pride Month. Was that an informed decision?
I honestly don't remember. Like 2 years ago, there wasn't really like a pandemic. I don't know anymore. I think that was just when we moved from my former co-host channel to a dedicated channel because we soft launched on their channel because they had a fan base. And then when we finally were like, okay, proof of concept accepted, people want to hear us for some reason, then we moved to a dedicated channel that was independent of the two of us. So while I would love to say, yes, that's exactly how we had it planned, that is not true.
At least you're honest.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie and be like, a gay pigeon hovered down and said, release ye episodes in Pride Month. No, I have no fucking clue.
Okay. Yeah. You sure it wasn't a dead dove?
Hey. Can I also just say my favorite thing on the internet right now is people who are reading Dead Dove Do Not Eat and then complaining that it's Dead Dove Do Not Eat.
You know, we talk about it so much that it's almost like we have to have a dedicated episode for tags. Like just an entire month.
I think I know what we're doing next month.
We were just talking about tags.
We were going to pick another fight next month, but I think I know what we're doing next month.
Oh, really?
Now.
I mean, it's still picking a fight.
The point of the podcast is we're going to fight.
I like fighting. It's fine.
We are here to talk about QueerBait. unfortunately prepared to get your feelings hurt, because this is something that you have probably seen a lot in your time on the social internet. I know both Carola and I have probably seen it, frankly, too much.
Yes.
Frankly, too much.
And
it's one of those, yeah, and it's one of those terms that, feels like it's something. It sort of reminds me, and please feel free to back me up or tell me that I'm wrong, but it feels like cultural appropriation a little bit, where like it started off as a very neutral term, and then, frankly, cis white women got a hold of it and ran it into the ground, and now no one really knows what it means, but it feels like a weapon.
Yeah, I think that is a very, very succinct way of putting it. It's like, it's one of those things, there's such a watering down of terms happening like all over fandom and the world in general. And it's just like, you're using this word, but I don't think you know what it means. Right. And by doing so, you're perpetuating this
non-existent problem.
Yeah.
So what we're going to talk about mostly is queerbait as a weapon. We'll go into the history, obviously, and what it really means, because we are both writers, one of us with more success than the other.
I'm fine.
Are you?
No.
Are you?
No.
So, unfortunately, that means that some of y'all are going to get your feelings hurt. We do this with love in hopes that when you are online, that you have a better experience for it. We're not trying to burn bridges. We're not trying to pick fights like with the intention of being cruel. Remember, Carola, what is my favorite thing about yaoi fandom?
I
That it is rooted in naval combat.
Yeah. I was just gonna...
Were you gonna say the dicks?
Yes.
I mean, that's... Yes.
I was trying to weave past the dicks, but my brain...
But there's...
I have been awake for too many hours. My brain just went into like, no. I'm sorry to everyone listening. I'm even more out of it today than I usually am, because this weekend has been a lot. Okay, I'll do my best. I'm glad that my co-host, who is...
I would like to say I have offered a
No.
multiplicity of times that we did not have to do.
You're
Also,
much more competent than I am today. I think I am...
Thank you. I appreciate
But
it.
yeah, naval
Also,
combat, yes.
Sidebar, I bought a pair of gender-affirming underwear that you could fit a packer in.
Oh,
And
nice.
I've not packed in like over a decade. Packers are so much more realistic now, and they have so many customizable options. What the fuck have y'all been doing with packers?
Having a great old time.
Having a fucking
Suggestion?
wonderful time. Like, they are so much more than like the socks filled with rice we were sticking in front of our...
You had rice in yours? I didn't even...
What did you fill yours with?
Socks!
Just socks on socks?
They're like balled up socks, and then occasionally they would come out like your leg. In my early days of cosplay,
problems when your sock dick falls out.
This is a sticker. When your sock dick falls out?
Because it's happened.
But it has happened. It happened to me.
It wanders, so it's like over on your hip. Because you're walking all day, you're sitting all day, you're standing all day, and it like detaches from whatever loose conglomeration of... we didn't have packing underwear back in the day, so we're just shoving this shit directly in front of our like pubic mounds.
And it's also funny because like you'll have, I don't know, maybe this is a problem that I had in my teens, where I was very small. Okay, like my frame isn't big, so wearing male underwear, I mean, clothes don't have gender, but wearing boxer shorts that clearly didn't fit my body, like obviously the socks are gonna fall out. There's nothing preventing them from like just tumbling. Oh god, it was horrible. You kids today, really, you have it so great. What are we even talking about anymore?
I'm not editing any of this out.
Of course not. This is. I said I was unhinged. Like, this
Yeah.
is good. This is a good. I enjoy this, but yeah,
Also, I apologize for the on-camera boob adjustment. Sorry about that.
it's fine.
Okay, so what is queer baiting? And to get to the nitty gritty, to get to the root, I'm gesturing if you're a listener only.
All right, we'll have listener only people, right?
We have hundreds of them.
I
And
keep
we
forgetting.
appreciate
I keep forgetting that everyone can't see us. I'm like,
I know. Well, also a lot of people will throw us on in the background. A lot of people being me because
yeah, I also do that. Like, I never watch anyone. I just listen, and then I'm
like I'm a narcissistic parent, and I'll be like sewing like a serial killer and like have us in the background like a modern day Patrick Bateman.
well, at least you listen to us.
Yeah, gotta keep those numbers up.
I like listening to us and like laughing at the same spots where we're laughing in the episode because I honestly think we're hilarious. I don't know.
I will say this: I was listening to us at the gym, and I was just like, yeah, just like I was on my little walkies, just listening to us, and I was like, we're very engaging, just on my little walk.
I mean, whatever makes your
my walkies easier.
where walk is easier.
So, what is queerbait? Queerbait is essentially, it's broken down from the two terms, queer and then baiting. Baiting as in, like, a bait and switch. Like, I don't know why my brain immediately goes to fishing, like, that's a universal experience. But, like, when you bait a fish hook and you cast it, that was a good wrist motion. That bait is used to entice the fish.
Mm-hmm.
And from the fish's perspective, to get philosophical, that's kind of cruel because you're tantalizing them with something that they think that they want that will inevitably be their destruction.
Yeah.
For us, it's wonderful because I love fish. But to the fish, it's quite cruel. So you see this term used a lot, and we would be remiss not to take the term back to its roots. In queer spaces, it originated in queer spaces, looking at media, seeing obvious signs, and being disappointed. I'm going to put a circle on that originating in queer spaces. So, queerbait is essentially when you're watching a show, reading a book, watching a movie, and, you sense in the force that there is a gay about to happen.
I love it when I sense that a gay is about to happen.
Is that not exactly what it is?
I mean, that's what it is.
Is that, I've also been watching a lot of Star Wars, do not ask questions, but it's like, you're standing there, and it's like, there's a gay in the force. Like, you feel it. You're collecting all the signs. It's like those, like, memes where, like, it's math formulas and you're drawing connections. It's like that. You're watching, you're reading, you're taking it, and it's like, oh, a gay is going to happen. A gay is going to happen. Oh, man, a gay is really going to happen. And the gay doesn't happen. That's queerbait. We have probably all experienced it at some point in our lives. Some shows and some media are more egregious than others. And we certainly have stories about that, don't we, Carola?
I'm sure we do.
But that's what queer baiting is. Do you have anything to add to that definition?
No, I think it's I think that's essentially it. Like you're capturing the important parts, especially in the origins are.
Mm-hmm. I would also be remiss to not talk about again that it starting in queer spaces means that it doesn't stay there very long. Because
God forbid the queers have anything.
No. Because Carola, would you like to tell the listeners at home what queer baiting isn't? Because I think here's the thing about queer bait that I think made us want to talk about this. I think we all have a pretty good idea, or we think we have a good idea of what it is. The problem is that idea is memeified, essentially. I mean, like, the actual term meme, which is, like, clipped out of context and perpetuated so much that it no longer resembles its original self.
Yeah.
because I also did a communications theory.
Yeah?
Would you like to tell the listeners at home what QueerBait isn't?
I had a very, very succinct sentence in my head. Let me just try to kind of reconjure
I have a succinct sentence in my head.
I'm sure you do. You have a lot of sentences in your head.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, you're very good at this. No, I mean, I want to say, like, putting it bluntly, just because you don't get what you want or the representation that you envisioned, that is not queer baiting. Because I think one of the weirdest things I see, which is like, you are trying, but then somehow you actually kind of made it worse, because now you're over here, like, say that there's a character who is queer, who identifies, as far as we know, to our knowledge, as queer. Somehow they have a crush on someone of the same sex, or whatever, and then they don't end up with them. That's just life. That character isn't any less gay because they don't get a gay happy ending with the person of their dreams. And I see this a lot. It's like, yeah, but they didn't end up with so and so, so it was queer baiting all along. You are now erasing the identity of this character, who's
more importantly, erasing that rejection happens.
Yeah, like sometimes you fall in love with someone who doesn't love you back, and sometimes, unfortunately, you may fall for a straight person. And as much as the internet likes to hate on straight people, you can't really blame people for who they're attracted to. So it's kind of like
So my succinct sentence to QueerBait, and this is the one that I think is the biggest quote unquote problem, and we'll talk about it more, is just because your ship didn't sail, that does not make it QueerBait.
No.
And I say this as a professional fangirl. Carola is a professional fangirl.
I am very professional, yes.
We are both professional fangirls.
We've been fangirling for a very long time. We know what we're doing.
We have. I have set up ships and hoped that they will sail into the sea. And that doesn't happen sometimes. QueerBait, that does not make it.
No.
I think especially I'd like to dig a little bit at American fans looking at American television shows where they think that a show from the CW is going to be transgressive or progressive in any way.
What you're saying that they're not? Because
no.
Why is it that the first show I thought about was One Tree Hill? No, I thought of One Tree Hill because I vaguely remember that logo in the corner. I think that was on that channel, and they dealt not necessarily greatly with. There was a bisexual, I recall, and it wasn't
just a bisexual. They were just,
and it wasn't great.
No, it wasn't.
No,
my first example of that will always be Supernatural, especially now that it's over and we get to kick it while it's down.
And I mean, it really did. Supernatural really did a number on all of you people who follow. Like, y'all were never the same ever again. None of you.
PTSD noises. Yeah, as someone who started Supernatural when I was in high school,
look what happened.
Look what happened.
Now you have weird attachment issues to pictures of birds and
okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean it.
I love my weird pictures of birds.
I love your weird bird pictures. It's fine, but it might also be like a comfort food for the horror.
I'm still not over the gay angel who gets sent to mega hell because he admitted that he was gay. And the person that he confessed to literally does nothing. Just stands there. And then the next episode they move on. How do cars go to heaven? Sorry.
You know, for someone who has seen half an episode of Supernatural, that is just like, I don't even know what to say to that. Like, okay, I guess carry on, my wayward son. Just keep going. I'll just be over here.
I think that is most emblematic to the issue of QueerBait is, yeah, in a lot of ways, that felt like QueerBait. Was it probably in its intention? I'm not going to give any of the writers enough credit to say so. But we'll dig into Supernatural in a little bit to go over how QueerBait forms, because I think that's the important thing about it. It's easy for us to tear it down. It's easy for us to say, oh, you didn't get your way, stop complaining. But I think it's also important to talk about how we get there. So, QueerBait is not ship teasing, it is not fan service, and it is not erasure of queer-coded characters. Queer-coded characters could be an entire other episode.
Yeah. And like I said, queer-coded characters are going to be queer whether they end up with quote-unquote the right person or the one you want them to end up with. We're not going there, but the only thing, and I think that this is very emblematic for what my week has been like, because when the only thing that has been keeping me sane for the entirety of this week, because it has been wild. When the only thing keeping me sane is Sasunaru, which is something I've been crying about for the past 20 years of my life, I think that says a lot about my mental state at the moment, because I'm just like, yeah, that's bad. But I have been plummeted into a hole of Sasunaru where I do nothing but cry about them all day, because someone pointed out to me that the Valley of the End episode aired 17 years ago, and I have a bit of a hard time realizing that I've been crying about this for 17 years and it still hurts. Anyway, I was ranting.
I had one of those things where they mentioned, like, oh, Fullmetal Alchemist originally aired like 20 years ago, and I was ready to fling myself into traffic.
It's like, excuse me, where did time go?
Like, I was fully ready to just like fling myself into traffic when it's like, oh yeah, Fullmetal Alchemist came out like 20 years ago. And it's
but you like yeet me into a volcano. I guess.
Yeah, it's like, I've had a good run, I guess.
Clearly, this isn't getting any better, so I might as well just, jump off a mountain. The point was that I was saying, and I'm not, we all know where I stand, and we all know what is true, and we all know what is canon, and we all know that certain sequel series do not exist. Do not talk to me about them. I will say this! I will say this. Here's the thing. I am sorry for turning this into the Sasunaru podcast almost as often. No, I'm not. As it becomes the gravitation shelf. But, like, okay, the thing about Sasuke, the thing that makes least sense to me about Sasuke, in a way, is that he would still want to resurrect the clan after everything that happened. Because the clan sucked, and everything that he believed in was a lie. So in my head, I'm like, okay, I don't understand why you're trying to resurrect the clan, because like that was they're just bound to keep ripping each other's eyes out and betraying each other all over again. But if we look aside, like if we look apart from that, if Sasuke's only like Sasuke has 3 things in his life that he's been obsessed with. He's obsessed with Naruto, he was obsessed with his brother, and then of course that, turned out to be not what he believed. And then he was like, I have to restore the clan. And okay, so to do that, I mean, I have already presented the idea that, Naruto could do a Sexy no Jutsu and be pregnant. I am just saying it's a viable option. But assuming that it isn't, I feel
no further comments about going to Birth Island.
I just feel like
another.
But I just feel like, okay, but the thing is, even if he chooses to have a child in order to resurrect his clan, that doesn't make him any less queer. Like, gay people have kids, and gay people get married and live in straight relationships because society, and sometimes you have to do that because your creator decided to earn more money and had to sell you out. But other times, I'm just saying, I mean, I'm not saying that Sasuke is gay, because I mean, we've all seen this show. But I am saying my brain is now dead.
I'm just letting you. That's the worst part.
I'm so sorry to the listeners.
I'm literally sitting here like in a peacock chair with my legs crossed, just like, please continue.
Are you judging me?
I would never dream of.
For the listeners only, there's some like shady looking tea sipping on my side here, and I'm like, listen, are you doing this?
So on Mother's Day, because I was sad, I went to the farmer's market and I bought 3 things, which is the most single girl purchase. I bought jam, I bought 2 sourdough bagels, and I bought a half gallon of ginger beer. So this is very high quality ginger beer.
Okay, fine. I thought it was tea.
And I will say this, the hipster man selling the ginger beer was like, oh, we do refill and bottle returns. If you return this bottle, you get some money back. It's like, you are never seeing this bottle again. Sir, I'm a kitchen witch. You are never. That is so cute of you to assume that you are ever getting this bottle back. I am so glad that you assessed me incorrectly and didn't see that I'm actually 15 magpies in a coat and that you think you're getting this bottle back. I'm so glad my disguise worked. That you trusted me. That you're getting this little jug back.
Yeah.
Bitch, this is mine.
You live your best magpie life. I approve of your
The
choices.
crow brain is so strong. It's like, must keep jars for little things. Put things in the jars. Like,
shiny things.
Shiny. Put the rocks in the jar. Like, it's,
yeah.
Oh god.
But yeah, but I don't know. Like, I don't know where that tangent ended up. But the point is, that characters, sometimes they do things that doesn't correspond with that identity either, because there's a whole, they have reasons for whatever dumb choice or good choice they choose to commit.
Yeah. Okay, to put a bow on what Carola is saying, because...
What am I saying? I'm sorry.
I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that...
I'm gonna have some more caffeine, because clearly...
It's easy to see how we get here. It's easy to see why we would feel this way. But it's also in that easiness that makes queerbait and queerbait as a term so insidious.
Yeah.
Because, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we get here. It is in that the roots of destruction start to form. So we're going to very, very briefly go into how does queerbait happen, or how do we get to where we are. Now, I do want to take a subsection to talk about ship teasing and fan service, to take it back to Asian media and especially sports anime, which loves to pretend like it's going to be queer and is never queer, except for the one time it was actually queer.
And even that is something that people are
really soft.
We were literally talking about this before the episode. About that one. Not we.
I was like...
Yeah. No, the one and I. No, because it's just...
like we were talking about Pom Pom Purin being associated with Angie Todoroki.
Yes. No, but I'm just saying that even when... Because... and we're not going to jump the gun here, so we're not going to talk a lot about it. But like, even when you're given, because that thing, because you were talking in the introduction about how the senses are tingling. There's a gay happening.
Yeah.
But then you're so used to being a fan and just like shipping things that when it actually becomes canon, you're kind of confused, because you're just like, wait, it is gay, but then.
And it almost feels wrong. Like, it almost... So, like... And this might be me projecting, so please feel free to tell me if I'm wrong and incorrect and wrong. But, like, we're talking about Yuri on Ice, if you haven't figured it out. We're not being veiled at all. We're talking about Yuri on Ice.
Of course.
But, like, at least when I was watching it, them confirming it almost just made it feel like a cop-out. It's like, wow, of course the ice skaters are gay. Like, it almost felt like that was the easiest route they could take. That... the more controversial route would be to just let these characters be who they are, which realistically, I think without plot magic, they would not be together in the way that they are. I just don't.
I don't know.
I think there's a heavy amount of plot magic that they threw in right at the end because they felt the fandom. I'm going to go somewhere with this reference, but horseshoe crabs, right?
Okay.
I'm going somewhere, I promise.
Go on. Walk your merry way with the crabs. Sideways.
Actually, horseshoe crabs go this way. They can't
Okay.
really go sideways.
Fine.
They look like helmets.
Oh yeah, right. Those.
When they go to spawn, they like crawl onto the beach and they just like release their stuff everywhere.
As one does. Okay.
Yeah. I say that because, and this has been in my brain for the last easily 20 years. I was watching a documentary on this, and there was this guy, and he was like watching the horseshoe crabs spawn, and he was just like rolling around in the water, like in their stuff. And I was just like, what are you doing? But I'm getting somewhere.
Okay.
And when you have whipped the fandom into a frenzy like that, of course, you think you're subverting expectations, which is a big thing that writers love to do, is subvert expectations. That giving the fans what they want almost feels like a step backwards. At least in my opinion.
No, I know what you were saying. It makes sense.
I think the much more transgressive and progressive story is Yuri is probably very demisexual. It probably has too much social anxiety to do much of anything but sexualize food.
Fair.
Victor is a raging whore.
Fair. Also fair.
Yodio and Otobek are fine. No notes.
No, they're okay.
Yeah,
but,
no notes. They're
apart
perfect.
from, how they're
no.
kind of Russian, and that's,
Okay, I don't think... Okay, unless Yodio is following Vladimir Putin on Instagram, I don't think that he has any opinions on this.
No, I'm just saying, I feel sad for my poor children who have to live in... Okay, anyway.
But
go on!
Go on.
I know what you're saying.
Thank you. That's all I'm getting at, is that... So sometimes we do get the fan service answer, and sometimes it feels hollow as shit. So for all of our want of this stuff, sometimes when we get it, we don't know what to do with it because it feels wrong. And I'm going to say this because this is never going to be true representation. We're looking to media that is still created by mostly cis people to represent us. So when we're given this package that feels like true representation, it's capitalism.
This is also true.
It's marketing. So, yes, please.
But it's such a... I feel like all I do is, repeat myself, but, it's such a tangled mess.
It is.
On one hand, because you can have all of these things existing and coexisting at once, because of course it's capitalism. And then it's also... on one hand, it's capitalism, and then on the other hand, it's a cop-out because the way that they did that kiss, they chose to do it in a way that would make people question it so that some people could choose to ignore it. Like, you could have, because, for better or worse, you can have the people who don't want it to be canon to be like, yeah, but you don't actually know, and, kind of like, and Japanese media in particular does this a lot, and... and I'm not saying that Western media doesn't. I feel like we've talked about this. There is an expectation in the Western fandom sphere that the creators exist for us to fulfill every single want and need that we may have.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I mean, that's not how it is, because creators are free to do whatever they want with their characters and in whatever way they want to do it.
Yeah.
Bullying studios into okay, one thing is redesigning Sonic, but, you can't be like, oh, I don't like the way that you treated my ship, so I'm going to harass you on Twitter. That's a whole other level of entitlement.
I would love to. I am so tempted to release some of my OC stuff just because I would love to be that creator who's just like a cat on top of the fridge. Like, why are you bullying this character? Because I can!
I mean,
like,
you can, because they're yours.
I would love to be like that, like, gremlin on the top of the refrigerator. Just like, oh my god, what is that, like, meme of, like, the cat, like, angry at, like, the salad plate and the two women yelling at him? I want to be like that with my OCs, where it's like, why do you keep bullying this OC? Because I can, man!
Yeah, well, he's yours, you made him, you know, that's why I have Aki. But yeah, you know, I didn't mean that.
Aki? What did you do?
He's the victim of all of my horrible whims. He's not doing very well. He's really
I can't
not.
imagine he is. I
No,
don't see why he would be.
He's not doing well at all. But yeah, no. Where was I going with this? Yeah, so you know, on one hand, yes, but also I think that Japanese media in particular. I mean, and obviously that there's a scheme there. You know, like they want to earn money, and again, that is why I personally think that typical harem series don't do well when translated into animation, because you're trying to fulfill all the roots. So you're trying to feed all the fans, but no one actually get anything because there's no conclusion. And
yeah, like why I'm still angry at Oron.
Yeah, and you know, I'm having a small stroke thinking about all the harem anime I've suffered through, but but you know, but there's much more. I think there's much more of an understanding that leaving things open and just like leaving the threads so that the fans themselves can structure and connect them and essentially choose their own ending within the canon. And that's very popular because it's a foolproof way, because everyone wins. You don't do that thing where it's like, yeah, we have these two ships that people are fighting over, and then I'm gonna let one of them down.
Like I think that, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but like honestly, what reminds me of that the most of is Free, where one of the reasons why, especially like those last couple of seasons, really were kind of not always the best was because Free had done a pretty good job of keeping, you know, the 5 nations at peace. That you had, you know, your obvious couple of pairings, and then they throw in Sosuke, and then they tried to canonize Rin Haru, which is the incorrect answer.
Excuse me, you were correct. You were correct for a while there, because yes, everything was fine and perfect and dandy, and then they threw in Sasuke, and then it went to hell because
it have been fine because there's your Sosuke. You have a perfectly good Sosuke in the corner for Rin to hop on.
First of all, he's not perfectly good because he needs to take his destroyed shoulder and get out of my face.
He's working hard holding up the fabric of the series because all they've done is clone other characters after him.
Okay, this is true, but I still hate him.
I know. He is literally like Atlas holding up the series because he's the last original character created. Everyone else is just a skin-swapped version of another character.
I don't want to say this because I know that a lot of people love him, but I mean, I have no problem throwing Sasuke under the bus, obviously. But Ikuya, like, I don't have any particularly strong feelings for any of the characters that were introduced apart from Kiss Me. Because I love Kiss Me from the bottom of my heart. I love him. I love him. He's wonderful. Anyway.
I would love to throw him under a bus.
But he's perfect! That's a completely different... Okay, anyway. But Ikuya, because I know, and I do remember vaguely the season, and you know, because these new characters had their own struggles. And like, you know, I was happy for them when they resolved their issues. But I also cannot stop thinking about Ikuya as essentially darker haired Bizarro Haru. Like, that's because they just kind of he looks too much like him, and it's but I don't dislike him. I just don't have any.
A lot of the new characters just look like reskinned versions of other characters. We're losing the plot. But one of the reasons why Free was so popular in that was because in theory you could connect as many threads as you wanted and not be wrong.
You're wrong.
Except for when you're wrong.
I'm looking.
two old Fujians who refuse to change, except for when you are incorrect. You're
entitled to your wrong opinion. That's
We're
fair.
also entitled to your wrong opinion. I didn't see Rin coming over and trying to make sure that Haru ate and went to school and shit like that.
No, but also he took him to Australia to meet his other family.
Colony. That's romantic. Yeah, we're gonna go speak bad English together.
But he was impressed. Haru doesn't know any English. He doesn't know that Rin's English is horrible. Like, he doesn't know that. He doesn't understand a word that's coming out of his mouth anyway.
Okay, listen, I'm just saying, just because Rin could Little Mermaid the fuck out of Haru doesn't mean that he's the right choice. There is a perfectly good, perfectly stable, actual husband standing right there who has been supporting that weird dolphin man for so many years, and you are not going to tell me that this usurper, yes, usurper, is going to just cart him off and not care about his needs, not take care of him.
I can assure you right now that Rin and his pointy shark teeth took perfect care of Haru in every way possible, okay?
I'm sure him and his limp dick did fine.
Anyway. Why are you so mean to?
No. But
okay.
What we're getting at is that it was easy for us to draw the threads that we wanted to, hence why we have so strong opinions about it. Is that for the longest time, neither of us were wrong. If you wanted to ship Haru with Rin, you could. If you wanted to ship Haru with Mako, you could. Both sides had threads that they could pull to make that argument make sense.
True.
And it being ambiguous made everyone happy, thus made merch sales happy, which is really what everyone wants is capitalism.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's important, as much as we've been ranting, to go over how do we get here. And I think it's exactly what you just saw. It's pulling these threads, and especially when you're talking about anime. But I will not let go our American TV shows. For those of
carry
us
on.
Where we have shows. Honestly, the most emblematic for me will always be Sherlock. It will always be Supernatural, where there are very clear dots that you could pull, and no one would tell you that you're wrong for pulling them. This isn't like us looking at, like, I'm trying to think of something that is, like, so straight that you couldn't make it gay. And I feel like there has to be examples.
I feel like we wouldn't be the best at
We're
finding
not.
those
Because
examples.
everything that I came up with, I was like, there's a pairing for that, there's a pairing for that, there's a pairing for that. Like,
My immediate, for whatever reason, because I'm so rooted in gay ships that I was like, my immediate first thought was like, try to think of a fandom that has only characters of one gender, because clearly that's how it gets straight. Like,
right? Like,
what?
I was even thinking of comics for a while, but people have been gaying up Marvel and DC for years.
Yeah.
Especially, like, with the recent Batman, everyone thinks that him and the Riddler fuck a lot and hatefully. I have not seen that movie. I cannot attest to that fact.
I've seen that movie.
Keep on creating your hateful fuck art. I like it. Also, a lot of headcanons about the Riddler being trans. I have not seen this movie. I do not know what is going on. However, please continue about your merry way and doing what you do. So we're not the best examples of finding something that is so straight that you can't gay.
I feel like I can't remember the last time I saw something straight.
You know what? Transformers. You can't gay Transformers. The Michael Bay movies.
You can't?
Mm-mm. Unless you want to do, like, Starscream and Megatron, which is an established pairing in the fandom. I made it gay.
I feel like...
There's nothing that I can think of that cannot be made gay.
No, but everything is gay somehow. Like, that's the beauty of fandom.
Star Wars or something, like, there is nothing that I can think of that cannot be made gay. So we're not going to think about that for a second.
I'm thinking really hard, and I'm just like...
You try hard enough, anything can be gay. The point is, let's run with one example that that I think is one of the more well-known in this case, which is Sherlock. if you were to look at Sherlock and you were to say, some of these characters are queer coded, you would not be wrong.
I was literally just reading an article about this, about queer baiting in general, using Sherlock as an example. Now, I haven't seen this Sherlock rendition. There was a passage that stated that in the 3rd season there is an actual character writing fanfic in canon about Sherlock, and I was like,
that is true, because Stephen Moffat hates us, and he has hated us for the last 10 years.
I figured. I mean, I've heard this.
Moffat hates fans mostly because we're the first to be like, wait a minute. But yeah, Stephen Moffat hates us. If you guys didn't know that, just embrace it. Stephen Moffat hates us. But yeah, there's a lot of queer bait in Sherlock. If you were to look at Sherlock and Watson, there is a shit ton of queer bait there that wasn't there in the original books. Mostly because Watson was married. He gets married later, but then they kill off his wife, and it's a whole fucking thing. You have Sherlock, who is aggressively queer-coded. You have Moriarty, who is a literal fucking drag queen. I don't know what direction they gave Andrew Scott, but whatever it is, it's be gay, do crimes, do the most. He's literally saying, like, he like, I think he kisses Sherlock on the cheek in one of the episodes. Like, just the most queer-coded. So queer-coded. But if you were to say, I ship Watson and Sherlock, you can make a compelling argument for that case. That would probably pass, the Flex Seal boat test. If you were to say, I ship Moriarty and Sherlock, as far as I'm concerned, that's fucking canon. Be free. If you were to say, I ship Mycroft and that one other detective, valid. Go and live your life. If you want to say that Irene Adler and Watson's wife, not wife, who escaped from the Taliban, because of course she does, I would say live your best narrative. But Stephen Moffat hates us and would never allow for such good writing, because that would be interesting, and he simply cannot abide by that. I don't have feelings about Sherlock at all.
No, you're fine. You're perfectly.
I have not been internalizing feelings about Sherlock and Supernatural for the past 10 plus years of my life. I am good.
Okay, I believe you.
By books.
But it's, but exactly, but it's also, again, which is another ugly thing about capitalism, because come Pride Month, we all know what happens. All the big corporations are out there like, woohoo, rainbows, and we support you, and free love, and all of that. And then they're like, yeah, but we can't actually canonize this couple because we'll lose the people who are against it. We'll lose the demographic that, for whatever reason, doesn't see this gay, or, for religious reasons. I feel like this is especially a very, very American thing, because...
Well, and so I'll say that for big shows, like, that are truly not really queer baiting, it's just bad writing, like Supergirl comes to mind, where everyone's like, oh, Lena Luthor and Supergirl, they're obviously queer-coded. No, they're not. That's bad writing, and everyone likes lesbians. Like, that's not queer bait. That's your ship not sailing, and that's fine. That sucks. You're entitled to be mad about that, but there was no way that the CW was going to do that. That, yes. I think for shows like the Super Wholock Triad, where you have Supernatural, Doctor Who, and Sherlock, that audience wasn't there. So I think you would be right 10 years ago. Maybe even 15 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So I am generally referring to older. Yeah. Like, they feel recent in my head. But yeah, these shows typically that we have a lot of this discourse about are shows that aired 10, 15 years ago when the world looked very different.
Right. Excuse me. Like, I would say that absolutely for Supernatural. I think that they saw that the world was changing, because they can see their Nielsen scores. They know that their show was watched by nothing but 15-year-old girls and exhausted 20-plus-year-old women who've been doing this since they were in high school. They know, but you're right. They're still aiming at a base who would frankly be offended that their main characters are gay. You couldn't have a bisexual demon hunter or whatever the fuck they do in Supernatural anymore, even though... So I think let's play this out in an example. And I'm going to do it with Supernatural because that's where my base is. I'd also like to refer you to the episode that I did with Lovecast talking about very, very similar issues. So Supernatural gives us the character of Dean Winchester, whose brother is Sam. They go off doing Scooby-Doo mysteries once every week. During those Scooby-Doo mysteries once every week, Dean has admitted to knowing what a specific gay bar is in a specific town, makes several references to other male characters being attractive, uses gay slang more than his brother does. And then when they introduce Castiel, they are seen almost exclusively together. Dean is the one that almost exclusively is instigating Castiel's teachings about the human world, including many of the ones where Cass is learning about swearing and pleasure and stuff like that. So you're not crazy if you are watching this show and you start to think, that might be a bisexual. There are concrete examples with timestamps that you can say, if I collate all this down, Dean might be bisexual. And when that doesn't go anywhere, it's very easy to feel, one, incredibly betrayed, and two, like you've been falsely baited. Like they set these things up for it to mean something. In film criticism and media criticism, that is called the sunk cost fallacy, where you see it a lot with shows that go on forever, and you keep sinking in because you've been here for so long. It's gonna get good, right? It has to get good. All of these Chekhov guns that you've been holding on to, you've been stacking these little pieces of information for a third of your life now.
And somehow you're still willing to believe that it's gonna happen.
Right. You're holding on to all of these little pieces, these little breadcrumbs, and you've compiled them into a makeshift loaf. And then a gust of wind comes and it blows it all over. You can
there
see
goes your little house of cards.
Yeah, that you've been meticulously building. And I want to say this. Many of us, for a decade or so. Carola, how long have you been obsessing over Sasunaru?
I mean, I am very bad at math, but it's closing in on 20 years, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
But also it's canon. Leave me alone.
I mean, I was about to say Matt Mello has been my obsession for like 15, but that's
again
also
canon.
Yeah, that's also canon. And you can't tell me otherwise. You will not tell me otherwise.
I mean, there is a hill that I will die on gladly.
Yes.
I'll go down with this ship. Like, just sink me. Go on.
Yes.
Good luck.
Yes. And I think that's the other part of it, is as fangirls especially, and Fujin in general, and I'm going to go ahead and broaden the lens a little at queer people desperate to find representation, that we will hold on to these breadcrumbs and we'll piece them together. And we will make sad, desperate little loaves. And then we'll present them to the series creators. And then the series creator knocks it out of our hands as aggressively as they can. Another example that comes to mind is early Marvel movies, like those Phase 1 Marvel movies, where everyone was convinced that Tony and Bruce Banner were aggressively queer-coded in the first Avengers movie, which they were. And then later on that there is aggressive queer-coding between Captain America and Iron Man, which there is.
What about Bucky? I thought...
So that's literally Civil War. It's a bitter divorce between Iron Man and Captain America, and Bucky's the other woman.
Yeah, because that's what it felt like. Like, I'm not a big fan of that
literally
movie,
what
but that
that
is
movie is.
exactly what it felt like.
That's literally, it's a bitter divorce between two old gays, and Bucky's like the other woman. He's like the pool boy who seduced the other partner.
But then also there's like timey-wimey stuff in there, so it gets a little, that's a little
There's a lot of
complicated.
timey-wimey stuff there. But like, again, I can do this all day. There was a scene in one of the Avengers TV shows, one of the animated ones, where it's Captain America and Iron Man. And, you know, Captain America has a huge boner for Tony's dad, Howard. And, like, Tony's, like, listening to a hologram of his dead dad, as you do.
As
and
you do.
Captain America comes in, and he, like, wistfully looks up, like, Howard? Is that you? Like, it looks like a Disney scene where it's like birds are flying around him, his eyes get all big, and he's like so excited to see Howard Stark. And it's like, a queer wrote this. That is not a straight man. Like, it's like all the curtains come down. It's like, that is not a heterosexual. But that's in part how we get here. We're hard-coded for this. We are hard-coded to do this pareidolia thing, where we connect patterns, and we see little crumbs, and we hold on to them like squirrels or chipmunks. And we store our nuts.
And but we don't forget where they are, actually.
We have never forgotten.
We know where they are. It's like,
we know every cache of nuts. And we can recall them on an instant.
And then it's like, hey, you person who wrote this, what about that split second in this episode of season 3?
You're shaking one nut.
You are that creature from Ice Age. Like,
like, that is literally every Fujin. Is we are scratched.
Yeah.
In the comments below, give us any piece of media, and if we cannot find a pairing for it, we have failed. Because
or we haven't seen it, but I will.
Yeah, or we haven't seen it. But everything that I could think of, I was like, Star Wars, I can make that gay. Marvel, I can definitely make that gay. DC, already pretty gay, but I can make it gayer.
You can always make it gayer. That's just like...
I can make it gayer, don't worry about that. But here's the thing. Why is this less than great? Honestly, I think it takes up a lot of resources, and it really sets us all back. It takes away from actual queer media that is doing actual queer things, telling actual queer stories. Now, I will say that is getting much better as more queer stories are existing and coming out.
Pun intended.
Pun intended.
But and also, as more queer people are allowed to co-create and write and star and affect the media that we're seeing as well.
Absolutely. And more people are calling it out where it exists.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest places where I feel like it isn't great, and that's one of the reasons I tied it to cultural appropriation earlier, is it's been so diluted now that I think it really has lost its meaning.
Yeah.
That now anything that isn't you getting your way is queerbait. Which isn't true. Like, that's just not, like, oh, Disney's The Lion King was queerbait because Scar wasn't gay.
Yeah, and I think I had a thought. I did have a thought. It was just The Lion King. You broke me. Just like, why do you have to bring Scar into this of all?
Because he was really queer coded. Because he was really queer coded.
And of course that is a whole other, hornet's nests right there. With why are so many Disney villains queer coded, and the whole debacle surrounding that. Because why are they villains? I personally love a good villain, so I'm just like, be gay, do crime. I feel like this is very powerful.
All of my favorite Disney villains are the aggressively queer-coded ones, and I think that, they're usually right. Gaston had good points. There's a monster in a fucking castle. He doesn't know that the monster wants to read and not be an incel. He doesn't know that.
I did read this really compelling thing on Gaston recently, where someone was like, Gaston is obviously gay, because he knows that there's one girl in this village that doesn't want him, so obviously he's going to pursue her, and then he's going to be all, oh, but she's the best and I won't stop until I have her, and then he's like, okay, so then they will leave me alone.
Yeah, and that one Disney movie blackballed us into thinking that they were going to do a queer thing, and they didn't. Almost like capitalism is the problem. Anyways, what makes this... Hi.
We already...
on this corner, where we discuss the downfall of capitalism.
But it's... You know...
It takes up a lot of resources, honestly.
It's kind of hard to ignore it.
It is. And I think especially when you talk about large companies like Disney, where they were putting on a show of diversity when it does nothing to actually help said diversity, that it particularly feels a bit hollow.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw a horror... Like, I'm sorry for saying this, because we all know I do not support this person. She was the real witch all along. But I just... Yeah. Okay, because if we talk about Dumbledore for a second... Oh my god, I can't believe
True QueerBait.
But it's like, I just think, and this is always... I mean, this is my personal opinion, and it's totally fair if people disagree with me. But I think that if you, for instance, compare Disney time and time again saying that, oh, this time we're gonna have a queer character, and then they're just like, you know, in the background for half a second, and they have absolutely nothing to... They don't have any effect on the plot. They don't have any purpose. They're just there, and they're like, oh, look, but that character is gay, so it counts. And it doesn't, because this is just posing at this point while you're supporting the Don't Say Gay bill on the outside. Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's just being performative. But if you look at Dumbledore, and again, I am now going way back in time where, you know, the world was different, and we didn't know that someone was the turfiest turf on the planet, because obviously, what the hell? I
don't think any of us were expecting... I'm going to go ahead and argue none of us were expecting that move.
No, I'm currently, like, face planting into... I mentioned this in the last episode, but I face planted into a lot of like history things recently, and I've been reading a lot about the witch trials in Sweden and Norway, and I'm reading a book right now that is like dealing with the various perceptions of magic and wizardry, and this book was written in 2004, so the author is like continuously talking about the positive effects of Harry Potter, and I'm like, oh, the irony, because who was the witch all along? That didn't age well. But my point is, when Rowling first said that Dumbledore was gay, everyone was really happy about it. And then as time progressed and she turned into a worse and worse person, or, you know, at least the layers started coming undone and we became aware of how horrible this person actually is, you know, there were more and more things that were being dragged out, and okay, but this wasn't as great, you know, and this is performative. But I've always felt like, and again, not excusing her, because she can go die in a fire for all I care, but go die in the goblet of fire. but Dumbledore, I think it's perfectly valid to have a character and just say they're gay, and you don't have to elaborate on their entire friggin' life story, and you don't have to be like, you don't have to prove it, you don't have to be like, oh, this is their first crush, and this is, you know, all of those things, because gay people exist and they have lives, and like, I think that sometimes that is the representation we need. It's just like that little one-liner mentioning that, he
had a boyfriend.
He had a boyfriend.
I don't want to stop you, but I do want to hallmark on that. I think also a lot of subtlety is lost in the QueerBait debate.
Yeah.
Because, I do not need to be having gay sex for you to know that I'm gay.
Exactly.
You can just look at me. There is no part of me that reads as heterosexual. But I do not need to be performing gay sex on your lawn for you to know that I'm bisexual.
No, that's probably a crime. I mean, bisexual or not, that's like, don't do that.
That is indeed a crime, but please continue.
Yeah, but exactly, because it's like, this is what people are like. It's like that big debate that is happening over, you know, in your country right now about how apparently it is a sexual harassment. I'm not saying that this has anything to do with you because you're a sane person, you know, but you know, it's sexual harassment, or it's like shoving your sexuality in the children's faces if you are a teacher who just happens to mention that, oh, I have a wife even though I'm a woman, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're pushing some agenda or you're grooming them. But why is it okay for your female teacher to say that she has a husband? It's the same thing, because gay people exist. And if Dumbledore was gay, I mean, knowing now what we know now, obviously that changes the whole that whole conversation. But in the beginning, when we were discussing this, I don't necessarily think that it's queer baiting, because it's perfectly valid to be gay without being extremely in your face gay. And that's a lot of the problems with a lot of these, because we're like invalidating a lot of experiences as well, because, you know, just because you don't see that pair kissing, just because you don't see them having sex, it doesn't mean that those emotions aren't there. It doesn't mean that they're not exploring and experiencing those feelings. And a lot of the time, and of course this is where it gets a bit tricky, because sometimes it is left intentionally ambiguous for us to interpret it whichever way we like, and sometimes they are putting it in there for us to discover it and for us to understand it and read into it as a queer experience and as a queer relationship, even though it's not. So whether they kissed, you know, whether Victor and Yuri kissed behind, you know, with their, because the kiss was obscured by their arms, and then the debate has been raging. It's been 5 years and we're still like, oh, but maybe they didn't kiss. So what? They clearly had a lot of, you know, they had a lot of love for each other. And you can't invalidate that just by saying, oh, but we didn't actually see them, you know, kissing.
No, I can. I can invalidate.
I mean, you can, but you know what I'm saying. It's just the point is,
I'm giving you a hard time.
it's exactly what you said. Yeah. They don't have to get dirty in the rink at the Grand Prix final for them to be gay. Like,
I actually would have.
Of course, I wouldn't have minded, but you know,
I don't think anyone would have minded.
I
don't think anyone would have said a goddamn thing. I think so. I love where that's going. I think let's go also into, now that you've mentioned Dumbledore, why does this keep happening? Because, you know, there's a part of me that's almost masochistic that thinks that it's on us. It's on Fujin, that we are wrong. We are the problem. Why do we keep doing this to ourselves? Why do we keep being foolish enough to think that capitalism will ever allow queer people to be happy?
Because we like the shiny things and we're easily swayed, at least. Well, but I am incredibly easily swayed.
I respect that. I think for me, at least, it's not so much that I'm easily swayed, it's that so I'm a media critic on Fangirl Nation, which might be a shock to none of you. So, like, reviewing movies, reviewing media, that is my bread and butter. That is what I do. And I take my job very seriously. When people, one of the biggest things I always hear, and it's a statement that to this day infuriates me, is, oh, why don't you just turn your brain off? It's like, oh, I didn't see any of that in that movie. I just enjoyed it. And I'm not saying that to be like gentrify-y or gross. Like, yeah, there are plenty of movies that have no deeper plot and don't need to be examined. But every piece of media is trying to sell or tell you something. It's one of the reasons why, if you look at Axis Powers Italia, Japan is entirely scapegoated, despite the fact that Hitler looked at what Japan was doing during World War II and said, calm down. Which is a true fact about World War II. When the Nazis are like, y'all are doing too much. You've done too much. But there's a reason why in a lot of Japanese media that talks about World War II, because they have a fetish about talking about World War II, that they were just going along with their friends, and all of their friends were doing a war crime, so they did a war crime. And let's do some really, really racist depictions of China and Korea during the process.
Yeah.
That's trying to sell and tell you something. That is propaganda. So while it might be packaged as a fun, I'm using air quotes, light-hearted comic about countries personified, it is definitely the perspective of a frankly racist Japanese man who made a racist joke with a bunch of his friends that got popular. It is always trying to tell and sell. So we keep doing this because, especially as an underserved and underrepresented community, be it either female, POC, queer, all of the above, we're hardwired to do that pareidolia, that finding patterns in things, because we are desperately seeking that reputation, that representation. Desperate. For me, it was never really racial because I grew up in a racist society, as everyone has. So for me, it wasn't necessarily about race. But definitely as I got older and embraced my bisexuality, it was definitely looking for more characters that were like me. And if you look at a lot of my early characters, they are bi kings and queens. Some of the best characters I think I've ever written are absolutely messy bisexuals, because I also got tired of the whole, every gay character is either a literal villain or a saint that floats from the heavens and has never done anything wrong and then dies because they're too good and too pure for this world. So they're messy bi kings and queens who, get drunk, fuck someone they've never met before, probably regret it the next day. It's literally John Constantine. Shut up. I felt it. Me and my sociopathic blondes, just in a box.
Fine.
We're desperate for that representation. We're chomping at the bit for it. So anything that waves, that does not I'd like to get a midichlorian reading, and also I don't want to ignore the social aspect of it. Because Carola and I will do this to each other now, is we'll check ourselves. It's like, is this gay? This feels gay. We'll check each other, and it's amazing. I love that that's where our friendship is that we'll be like, this always felt gay to me. Is this gay? And Carola will be like, oh yeah, that's been gay for 15 years. What are you talking about?
But it's, but I mean, a more recent example. We literally, this week, finished watching Our Flag Means Death. And I saw everyone screaming about the gay pirates, but I am used to people screaming about, the gay, insert whatever, here. And I was like, okay. But then that thing happened where I was like, wait, this actually feels, and we're sitting here, I'm like, does this feel very gay? Is this just me reading into, because I want, and then it's like, oh, no, okay, this is okay, oh, and then we were very happy, and then we were very sad, and where the hell is season 2? I have thoughts. But yeah.
No, I've been exactly there, where, oh my god, Sarazanmai, where it's like, this is a lighthearted, dumb show about weird boys doing weird Kappa stuff.
And then...
no!
But yeah, because Sarazanmai is such a perfect example, because I love it from the bottom of my heart. Okay, fine, it hurt me in a lot of ways. The hurt is but also it's this is so gay, and then you're like, this is so gay, and then it's this is actually gay. And now
you don't know what to do with it. It's like, so you may have had this when you were a child, is when you really, really want something and you think that your parents aren't going to get it for you, and then they get it for you, and you almost don't know how to appreciate it. So fun fact, I'm an only child, and I was my parents, and I was the firstborn out of all the grandchildren. Needless to say, I was the spoiled little prince of the family.
Yep.
I was I was the spoiled little prince. I got everything that I ever wanted. So there are plenty of pictures of me looking at something that is objectively amazing and just not caring. Because my brain can't process that this thing I really wanted is in front of me. Or if I, even to this day, if I get a gift, if I get a really, really nice gift from someone, and I'm just I don't know what to do with this. It's like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, you've given me exactly what I wanted, and I'm not sure it's real. And like, you do the thing where like you inspect it, like you shake it or whatever. That was.
You shake it. Yeah.
I had jiggle physics. Oh, but like that was for the video portion of the audience. But like, you don't think it's real. It's like, oh,
no,
you couldn't give me exactly what I wanted. Why would you do that? Why would I trust you to give me exactly what I wanted?
And I also think, slightly related, I don't know if you do this, because I definitely do this. I don't know. I think we've talked about this before, at least off stream. But I'll be like, it's almost as if, because I think the fandom experience is so, it's so important. That whole, will they or won't they? And collecting your little threads and like doing all of your little conspiracies. And I personally really, really love the experience of just taking in a ship and just like, even because there are ships that I clearly, wholeheartedly think are canon and whatever, and then there are ships
and
that I just
will not be convinced otherwise.
Yeah, and then there are ships that I just enjoy shipping, and I'm just like, this is fun because I think they have fun dynamics, and I think that they have like fun. Yeah, because we did talk about this about gravitation, because we have a very different experience with that. Because I will consume if it is canon, but this is also typical because we have to remember that even if something is manga, even if something is anime, even if it's gay, it's not BL unless it's BL. So, Yuri on Ice, for instance, is not BL.
Thank you. I am so glad you brought that up. That is another huge part of it, is like, we're looking for BL and things that aren't BL.
Yeah.
And I also want to hallmark on something that you mentioned, the social aspect.
Yeah.
Is, we're all on our ships together. Some of us share a ship. Some of us are literally throwing rocks at the other one because that's all we have.
And sometimes we'll be like on the same ship, but then someone says something about a different
and you have
ship,
to like,
and you're like, I'm just gonna go.
Yeah. And you have like, I think I love that you brought up like our flag means death, because like that is literally the most, when you talk about like Fujin culture as naval combat, so much of it is just like that boring inner politics of like, they said something mean and I don't like it.
Yeah, and then you'll be like, suddenly you have someone, you share like 90% of the references in the ships or whatever, but then suddenly they have a different standing, and you're like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna leave this ship for like this boat for a little moment. I'm gonna go into this dinghy and just like row myself out just away from you for a while, and then you can talk about that thing, and then I'll come back when you're done, because we don't agree on that particular aspect, but we'll be like,
right.
I think I just lost. I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Okay, now you're back. Okay, good.
Okay,
I saw your mouth moving. I was like, what? I don't know what happened.
No, you're good. But like, no, you're right. It's like, you can be on the same ship together, and then to be like, I don't believe in Sasu Naru, and like you turn. I believe in Naru Sasu, and it's like, is that enough to keelhaul you? Is that enough to make you walk the plank? Because I think it is, but we need to have a vote. Like we need to
yeah.
Like I think we'd be remiss to not bring about the social aspect. So like for me, and this is something that I've noticed a lot, because like I know I've said this a million times, I have a smut Twitter that no one else that I know follows. Like I have 0 mutuals on it. So it's really just like me being able to experience fandom on my own.
Yeah.
I've never really done. So like a lot of what I've said recently, and I don't know if you guys have picked up on it, has been, I never saw it that way, but I can see how someone got there. That has been so much of my experience in the last couple of years, has been, I didn't even know that this was an option.
Yeah, exactly.
Steady on,
Yeah, and then like, you don't have to partake in it actively if it's not your cup of tea, but like you can understand it. And I think it's very interesting, looking at how people perceive these different things and what they find in it. Like, what gives you joy about this? Like, what aspects are drawing you to this? And maybe they're not the same reasons I'm enjoying it, but, you do you. Like, we do this a lot on this podcast, because we...
Yeah, absolutely. the reasons why it keeps happening is we'd be remiss to bring up the social aspect. Is that, especially again when you go back to the olden days where, you know, we're publishing shipping manifestos, we're sharing these screenshots, we're talking about this stuff, sometimes too much. Sometimes
that has never happened.
Sometimes it becomes your entire personality, and you're just standing there in front of, you know, your whiteboard with all these dots connected, and all of your friends are very annoyed with you because you won't stop talking about the thing.
No one has had a conversation with you that hasn't somehow turned into a whole ass rant about this.
About the weather, and you somehow end up on some fictional man's puckered asshole.
Yep.
Like, that's...
We've all been there. It's all happened.
All been there. And, you know, so, like, again, we're looking at this smut Twitter where it's, like, all these pairings, and it's like, I didn't even know that this was an option.
But it's like, I also think that, I mean, because I think that the shipping culture in itself, I personally, like, kind of, I divide it between, I divide it between...
Violence against microphone.
You know, ships that are supposed to be, I mean, they may or may not be canon, but if you look at, for instance, again, and I've said this, like canon BL, like how I look at gravitation, because we always talk about gravitation, so
is different than how I look at gravitation.
Yeah, but also the way I look at gravitation, because that is a BL. No, but I was getting somewhere, because that is a BL, and it does have a canon couple, because, you know, they are the main couple in this BL. And then you have series, like for instance Naruto, where again, I'm pretty sure this is canon, but it also has a whole other dimension, because it isn't a BL, and it isn't written, while it has been written in a way that you can perceive it and discuss it as such, it has a different dimension. And so I personally don't engage as much in fandom culture of, for instance, established BL series or established couples, because I think that the pining and the theorizing and the analyzation and all of these things that go into the shipping culture, that really speaks to me as well. So it's almost as if I become less interested in some things, like you said, that are canon, because I'm like, well, this is established. I don't have to dedicate my entire life to analyzing it, because it's right there. But so I will focus all my attention on this, and I will consume all the doujins and the fanfics and you know, everything, because I'm obsessed with it. And that doesn't mean that I don't love the canonical couples any less, but I love them in a different way, because that social aspect of being, or just being on your own and enjoying a ship, has a very different dimension to being served canonically, you know, established couples. And I think that that is so important, because that, I also feel like, of course we all want our ships to be canon, but they don't have to be, because such a huge part of this culture is the will they or won't they, is the did you see this hint, or what do you think about this, and like really analyzing it. And that is like, it's just it's its own thing. That can't happen if everyone always gets their way, and if everything always becomes rooted in canon and in an established truth. And I think that that's really important to think about.
No, I completely agree with you. And I think, like, to tie up some of the points that you made, yeah, because so much of this is social and it is rooted in the opinions of others. Like, one of the reasons why, you know, when I selected Carola to take on this show with me was because we don't agree on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Which means that we get to have very interesting conversations that are, one, very respectful, and two, very rooted in actual fact, and not just, this is QueerBait. Why?
Yeah. And I think it's so much fun to have these discussions and be like, yeah, sure, we can get frustrated because, like, clearly you are wrong, but also, why, like, you're making your argument, you're arguing your case, and I think it's really interesting to hear why you think this way, and how did you arrive at this conclusion, how did I arrive, and then, you know, there are things, and like you said, and I think that this is also really, as we grow older in fandom, and as we as we become fossilized. We
as we have already fossilized, according to many of the youth.
yeah, clearly. I mean, I'm dead.
Yeah,
the Valley of the End was 17 years ago, so clearly.
Yeah, honestly, we shouldn't still be here. We should have aged out of fandom.
I'm surprised they haven't evaporated yet. Just turned to dust.
When we turned 18, we should have stopped being fans. We should have, retired. We should have turned in our Fujin belt.
We could finally access all the content legally. That's when you need to just throw in the towel and be like, okay, I'm done here. My work here is done. No, but exactly, because of course, also because our brains are developing, and we are learning new things about ourselves and the world, and there are social skills and life skills, and media criticism and studying literature and taking all of these things in that we can put back into fandom, and then obviously we mature a lot, and so you are much more able to be.
Some of us aren't straight anymore.
Some of us don't know what's going on anymore, but we're just here for it. I'm living my best life. But it's we are able to have these conversations on a completely different level, respectfully, and being and making these connections and seeing things from a new angle. And you don't have to agree with it, like I've said a million times. But if you ship those two, then and you give me the reason why you think so, and maybe I will look at it and be like, oh, I never thought about it that way.
Right, exactly.
I see that. I don't agree, but I absolutely see how you see it.
And that's one thing that I've always loved about old Fujin culture is, it's you know what? I might not agree with anything that you said, but you have undeniably put in work. Yeah. You have published a novel-sized manifesto as to why you think these two characters that have never been in the same frame are married and have 3 children. You have clearly put in work. And I have no choice but to respect that. I want to put a bow on this by asking 2 questions. One of them is, we've done a lot of digging at queerbaiting, that it's negative, that it's diluted, that we've lost the point. Why is it, though, secretly amazing? And I think it's what you guys just witnessed. It's these conversations. It's the theorizing. It's the speculation. It's that social aspect of fandom, of collecting these breadcrumbs, these little caches of nuts, and then, we collaborate. Oh, do you have this in your cache? Oh, I didn't have that. Can I see that? And maybe I can go find it too. It's when it is not taken as seriously as it is sometimes. And I'm not saying that to diminish how important it is to hold our media to task.
No, of course not.
That is not what I'm saying at all. But when it is just a bunch of Fujins trying to make essentially a golem of nuts.
We need other Fujin to help with the golem. It's a lot of work for these tiny hands.
We've been working really hard on building these golems. It's not easy. We've been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah, I'm tired. Maybe I want some help.
I would love some assistance.
You wanna help me out? Yes.
Yeah.
And then I'll help you with yours.
You have this piece of information that is the exact frame down to the second of when their wrists brushed against each other. That was the piece I needed to finish my
golem. And it's beautiful, and it's so much fun, and I think, and the whole, the rush of endorphins you get when you're watching something, and something happens, and, sometimes it doesn't have to be about where they end up in the end, or who they end up with, because you have that one moment that is just
And you do it socially and as a community, and you scream together, you cry together, you get angry at Stephen Moffat together.
I mean, that one is a huge one. That's practically that is a movement.
That I would say that is arguably an entire political party.
Yeah, things I remember the most vividly from my Tumblr era. It's people hating Moffat. I'm I don't even know who this guy is, but people are
That
the
is such a
mob
mood.
is awoken.
That is such a mood. Like, I don't even know who this guy is. And
Yeah, like I didn't know. I was watching
everyone
any of this stuff. I'm like,
hates him. I don't even know who this guy is.
like, good
is-
for you. Like, clearly he's done something because
That
there's
is
10
honest-
million people on this site.
That
like,
is-
just
that is
absolutely,
Doctor Who.
absolutely
is Doctor Who
slamming
and
him in the
Sherlock.
tags.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
it. If you need to understand Doctor Who and Sherlock, it's that. It's, wow, everyone seems to really hate this guy. I guess he did something terrible. I'm not sure what, but apparently he's done something egregious. But it's this. It's,
Yeah.
oh my god, it's the angst. It's the pining. It's the producing of works. Do you think I would still be writing Matt Mello if I wasn't entirely convinced of the canonicity of those two obviously married homosexuals?
No.
Do you think any of us would still be doing this if we didn't care immensely?
But also going back to what I said earlier about the liberty and the freedom,
Yeah.
because that's also the beautiful thing about this whole aspect is that even if it is somehow rooted in canon and we just have to assemble the pieces ourselves,
They're not Golem.
then they're not, it's still, any way you want to, like, any way that it comes out is sort of valid. Like, you don't have to adhere to some canon that was established, like, okay, and then the author decides that they get married and the end and they have a happy, whatever. Like, you can experiment, like, okay, maybe you want to send them to France and maybe you like, you can do all of these things because there's clearly something there, but it's up to you. And that's part of that whole Moa experience. That's part of the whole Fujin experience, to find those things that make you happy and put them together. And it's you essentially, you fill that gap with whatever you want, and you just enjoy it. And you can't do that if someone already decided that this is how it ends and this is exactly how this relation is supposed to work.
And I also want to go into the discussion about, again, like, transformative works. So one of the things, if you listen to me talk about writing anyway, one of the first things I say is I write for revenge. I firmly believe that the author is dead. Not just that they're physically dead, but, like, once you have published this work, it no longer belongs to you. It is now, for the most part, belonging to the masses.
I'm having a small panic attack, but I'm fine.
I
Go
know.
on.
You have very good listen, it's okay.
No, I will elaborate, but just go on.
But, so, like, we talked about J.K. Rowling. I'm very much on that train of, wow, it's amazing that Harry Potter just popped out of the ether 30
Just
years
manifested
ago.
on its
Just
own.
manifested itself.
Wow.
He has been irrelevant to this franchise even before she decided to reveal herself as the truest victim of all, or villain, a turf. She was dead to this series before she removed her cloak and revealed.
Yeah, I mean, that is also very, very true.
So, one of the things that I loved most, especially about, like, the Harry Potter fandom, is that we've taken that away from her decades before people would say. So, you know what? There were gay Slytherins. There are trans Hufflepuffs. There's pansexual Gryffindors. There's Jewish characters written by Jewish people and are not racist stereotypes. There are black witches and wizards that are not tokens. We took that away. And we did that.
Yep.
So in the place that we were not represented, we made our own. I think that's what fandom is at its best. Is seeing an opportunity where we were maligned and taking it back.
Yeah.
You're mad about Dean Winchester not being bi? Guess what? Open up AO3. You're gonna get sick
bi
of
now.
it. He's very bi over there.
He's having a great time.
He's having varying levels of great time. There's some vor involved.
It's okay, whatever.
Yeah, there's some vor as a seasoning. But we took that back. We
Yeah.
said, okay, if you're not going to do it, if you're too much of a fucking coward, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And we've been doing it.
And
That's
well, at that.
Fucking better than most of the original creators. There are Harry Potter fanfics that read more coherently than Harry Potter.
I mean, you gotta give it to fan creators. Like, these people, like, no one knows more about anything than an obsessed fan who's just, like, putting their heart and soul into this fic and just, like...
I can promise you, if you did, like, a Jeopardy style between Masashi Kishimoto and then you have me and Carola, Kishimoto's not gonna win.
I mean, clearly.
And we don't take that with, like, any lightness. He does not know more about his own series at this point.
Like, good luck trying to debate me, sir. Like, I'll be over here with, you know, with my charts and my notes and my screenshots, and I'll be like, listen, what about this?
Right. Like, I promise you, there is no one who knows more about a creator series than its fans.
No, it's true. I mean, this actually happens to me. I mean, you know, clearly not a huge creator over here, and like, I'm not, you know, but I have written books and people have read these books, and occasionally someone will say to me, like, they'll be like, for whatever reason, like, some people seem to think that I know what happens on literally every single page. So I'll be like, oh, how far along are you? And they'll be like, I'm on page 217. As if I know what is happening on page 217. I don't know. And then someday someone comes up to me and they're like, yeah, I was just reading this bit when this character says that. I'm like, what? When did that happen? I'm not in. Okay, whatever you say, because the fans have a very different approach and a very different relationship. I have read this novel 15,000 times. I am very tired. I love these characters. I have favorite scenes, but you know what? I never want to look at it again in my life. And so you forget things. Sometimes I'm reading my own stuff and I'm like, what? What is this? When did this happen? This is a problem.
Me 90% of the time.
Yeah.
But this is amazing because of this. What it's given us the space to do.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I love so much about these communities is in places where we are not represented, we make our fucking own.
Oh yeah. And you know, like what you said about, because you know, obviously I own my characters. I love these boys and girls. There are some girls, but I love these boys. And they belong to me, but they also belong... That is like one of the nicest and worst parts about publishing a novel, is that they've been mine for so long, and now they're going out into the world, and I'm going to share them with someone. And I know that, like, I may be the one who sits with the answer key. Sometimes, like, I know these characters. I know what they're thinking a lot. I know things that you will never know because I never wrote it, because I couldn't fit it because the script was already too long. But I also think that hearing people's theories and hearing people's ideas of how they interpreted this and how they think that this worked out, I think that's really interesting. In my second novel, it has kind of like an open ending because I honestly don't know what these characters are doing. Like, they made a mess for themselves, and they aren't in a place where they can clean this up. But I think it's very interesting talking to people who have read it and how, they'll be like, oh, I imagine that it's like this, and my headcanon is that, they're like this now. And I'm like, that's really nice. Like, I love hearing that. Like, even if I sit with some sort of ultimate solution to how this actually ends, I'm not going to take that away from you, because I love hearing what you conjure up for them and what you want for them.
Absolutely. I am not as famous, and thus very few people know.
I'm not famous.
Look, I have not published my biggest fan fiction because I am afraid. You are already doing more than I ever could.
But I don't know.
But I love that that's what we do. Now, I want to wrap up on what is now a recurring segment of the show is this fetishizing gay men?
This is now our regular corner. Let's just go to the regular is this fetishizing.
You know what? You might almost have it there. That for whatever reason we Fujin think that gay men are more interesting, that we think that queer relationships are more complex and thus more interesting. You might almost have a nugget of truth there. Unfortunately, this is not fetishizing gay men.
I mean, fortunately.
I mean, yeah, no aunties listen to this show, so.
Yeah, but like, you know, it's weird, isn't it? That we, as some flavor of queer, prefer reading queer things.
And that, honestly, yeah, a lot of times the queer relationships, especially the non-canon ones, are much more interesting. Mostly because of the implications of that relationship. Can you imagine how difficult it must be for Iron Man and Captain America to maintain a homosexual relationship in the roles that they're in?
I mean, maybe
That is...
if Doctor
Yes.
Strange chipped in and like threw them into like a here's your secret hiding place in another dimension. But yeah.
Like, that to me is infinitely more interesting than whatever the fuck Gwyneth Paltrow is doing.
I will never understand that character, and I know that I don't like Marvel and I don't care, but I'm just like, what?
She was better in the comics. It's okay. She was better in the comics. Like most of the depictions on screen, they're better in the comics. Like, how much more transgressive and progressive is it that maybe Thor and Loki have some very conflicting feelings about each other? Because they kind of hate each other, but they also kind of don't. How much more interesting is it than another story about attractive white people being in attractive white people straight relationships?
But also, just from a Nordic perspective,
We don't get to get the Nordic perspective very often, so I appreciate this.
I'm just like, whenever people are like saying anything about Loki, I'm like,
oh, I get.
Do you know? Like,
honestly, I'm not even a part of that culture or religion, and it frankly upsets me as well. So
it's insane. I love when people are like, "Oh, breaking Loki is pansexual," or whatever. I'm like, my good person. First of all, there isn't a thing like you think Zeus is bad. Loki has had relations with everything and everyone. He transformed into a female horse to distract another horse so someone could build a fence, and then gave birth to a eight-legged horse and is its mother. Like, and now you're gonna be like, oh, look, it's shocking that he's pansexual. I'm like, I'm not, we don't really believe in these gods anymore, but we're over here like, yeah.
No, I love that because I'm not Norse pagan in any way, but I've always been that kind of person as well. So is this fetishizing gay men? No.
Sorry.
And you know what? Honestly, that probably deserves its own conversation with people who are much more intelligent than either of us combined. I would love to have Dr. Thomas Budnett talk about this. If you're listening, sir, please.
Sir,
please. Doctor, sir, please. Casual simping.
It's okay.
Casual simping.
It's important.
Doctor, sir, please.
Have you appreciated your local BL scholar today? Because honestly,
I appreciate you every day.
I was talking about. Okay.
I'm trying to be nice.
I'm trying.
Yeah. Marry every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean?
The genderless void.
I love that because Yeah, I do. Literally every day.
True, though.
All right.
True.
I had a wonderful time talking
Yeah.
about QueerBait. It has been nearly 2 hours, and we are both exhausted and no longer know what we're doing.
I'm
So,
so fucking tired.
I'm so tired. This is where we thank our patrons. We are dangerously close to 10, which screams. Thank you to Carme, Jay, Lauren, Jamie, Weasley, Rin, and Nabila for donating to the show. We literally could not do this without you, and we so much appreciate it. Be on the lookout for your bonus episode.
Yeah.
And this is, I love it. I love it so much. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. Hopefully we get enough patrons where I get to make one of those like cool like ending screens where like everyone like filters down.
Yay.
Like a big show. But thank you guys so much. If you'd like to join them and get some very, very cool exclusive merch, have some input on how the show goes, and as well as get bonus episodes and bonus features,
Unhinged bonus episodes.
Very entertaining, but absolutely unhinged. You may do so at patreon.com/the Yaoi Shelf. We appreciate you so much. We will be back next month, which is going to be jam and packed.
I need a vacation in advance.
Carola, would you like to tell the listeners just some of what we have planned for next month?
I feel like my brain capacity isn't able to process all the things, but first of all, important, next month is June. June is Pride Month, it's anniversary month, it is FujoCon month, and we're gonna be at FujoCon twice.
Presenting 2 panels for FujoCon.
Yes.
Because we don't know what we're doing with our lives.
I know what we're appreciating the gay. What more do you want from me?
That's true. It's true.
Yeah.
So June's going to be insane. We're also, Carola, I'm going to give you an option. Do you want to do fetishizing gay men or tags? I feel like one picks an aggressive fight and one is just us being old and nostalgic.
What if we did? I'm just throwing out a suggestion. What if we sandwiched the tags between the queer baiting and the fetishization
after
yeah,
that?
thank you.
I love that. Okay.
Because I feel like again, there's this nice continuity with the whole.
Yes,
they do bleed into each other. Yeah.
I do like this theme story. Also, we will be talking about tags in general. If there is ever a specific tag you'd like for us to talk about,
like I really by dragon fucking.
Yes. I was also thinking Dead Dove Do Not Eat.
Yeah, but
I feel like that honestly could be an entire episode. It's just Dead Dove Do Not Eat.
I feel like that would be like Amanda talking a lot because I don't have a lot of personal experience with this one. So it's like solo leveling with Amanda.
free basing with Amanda, where I'm just surrounded by dead doves. I read so much Dead Dove Do Not Eat, and I have like that moment initially of like, this is indeed a dead dove. Never enough to say something mean to the creator.
Because you're, like I've been saying,
because I read
relatively sane human being.
Because I read the thing that says Dead Dove Do Not Eat, and then I'm presented with a dead dove.
Shocking! It's almost as if you were warned.
It's almost like,
wow.
You know what? We're going to do a combination of tags and trigger warnings there.
Yeah. Please do leave your favorite or least favorite or most traumatizing tags in the... is that allowed on YouTube?
Yeah.
Hopefully they won't be filtered out.
Yeah. And we'll definitely talk about them. Thank you guys so much for listening to us ramble on for almost 2 hours. Your hosts are exhausted, and we're going to go find food now.
Yeah, good idea. Sounds like a plan. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week for our live.
Woohoo! Yes.
Bye!
Bye!